Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about projections. Yes, projecting elements onto other elements. All right, so let's go ahead and download the file. So projection 1.catpart document. So let's go ahead and click on it, download it, and open it in CATIA. Hit open. All right, so let me change the color. Don't like the colors, I can change it locally, right? I can just right click on this surface, right click properties, and I'll give it a different color. I'm going to choose green color. And okay, there it is. Just easier to see. All right, and let me change the other three, or actually these three splines. And I'm going to change the color. I'll make them green and make them thicker. Okay, there they are. Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to project. All right, so what is project? So let's go through. Okay, so we're going to be using the projection command. And actually this one I do use quite a bit, especially on surfacing. Projecting points onto a surface, curves onto a surface, or even points onto a curve or point onto a line. Okay, so we're going to take one of these lines and project it on to a surface. And most of the time you're going to project normal, perpendicular to the surface. And there's also an option to go with respect to a direction. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the different types of projections, normal versus along a direction. All right, so let's look for the projection icon. Okay, there it is, projection. Okay, so we're going to project. Let's start with this line. I don't think we need to do all of them. Pick one of these splines. Okay, so before we do, let's click on projection. Click on projection. Okay, so what are we going to project? Let's pick this first green spline. And we're going to project onto our support, which is the surface. All right, so instead of a long direction, I'm going to go with normal, and then I'll show you a long direction. So let me first do normal. So it's going to project this spline onto this surface. This is our support. Let's get a preview. So there it is. Let me tell you what's happening. So if I go to this point on the spline, it's going to project perpendicular to the surface. And then every point on this spline will project normal to the surface and so on. Okay, so let me hit OK. I forgot to insert my new geoset. Let's go ahead and insert a new geoset. I'm not going to label it just for time because this is a quick video. And let me just change it to cyan for my curves. Let's see, a little too thick there. Let's make it a little thinner. And I'm going to drag and drop this into my new geoset. There it is. Okay, so what happened when we selected normal? So if I double click and take you back to this projection, project one. By the way, I haven't mentioned this, but anytime you use one of the commands, the name of the element is based on the command. So if we're using the project command, our new element will be called project one. The next projection we make is going to be called project two, and so on. So it takes on the name of the command. Okay, so we projected normal. Okay, so we took this, which is highlighted in orange, the spline, and projected it onto our support, which is the surface. And we chose nearest solution and hit OK. So let me show you what's happening. If I was to draw a line, point to point. So this point is projecting onto this surface where you can see that line is perpendicular. See that? It's perpendicular. So this point is going to go normal to the surface. I'm looking for the nearest, the shortest possible distance, right? Okay, so if we go to the other endpoint, let's take a look at the other endpoint and do the same thing. Draw a line, point to point. So you don't have to do this. I'm just showing you how it projects normal, right? You can see the line doesn't have the same angle as the other one. This is where it's the shortest distance. And at the same time, it's perpendicular or normal to the surface, as you can see. So that's what it does for every point on that curve. Every point on that curve, it's going to go straight, looking for the shortest distance while staying normal or perpendicular to the surface. Okay, so what happens when we don't want it to be normal? Okay, so let's do the same step, except this time we're not going to pick normal. Okay, so we're going to use the exact same line. So let's do project again. So we're going to project that same line onto the same surface. And this time we're not going to pick normal. We're going to say along a direction. We're going to force it to go in a different direction. So we're going to force this curve to go at a direction until it hits the surface. So my direction, we're going to use this straight line for direction, and let's see what happens when we pick this for direction. So instead of normal, we're going to go along a direction. Click in the direction window, pick the direction, hit preview in 3, 2, 1. And it's giving me a rejection. Hey, I don't have the same max distance, use projections, okay, close. So it's giving me a warning. Doesn't seem to like the projection. Preview again. Oh, it's giving me 2 separate solutions. Okay. Because of the curvature, it's giving me 2 different solutions. So let's see. Let's try turning off nearest solution. Preview. Okay, there it is. So it's falling off the surface. That's what's happening, as you can see. So because of the direction, so we're forcing the spline to follow the direction of this line. And the reason I was getting that warning is like, hey, you're getting 2 separate solutions and it breaks off. Okay, so this is not long enough. So instead of this line, let me pick the one in the back here. So let me go back to projected and pick this one instead. And preview. See, this one does land, right? On the surface. Let's pick the one in the middle. Go back. Pick the one in the middle. Preview. Okay, so see what happens? Along a direction versus normal, right? Gives you a different result. If you pick nearest direction, it's going to look for the... Sometimes the surface will go in a... It'll have an inflection point where it comes back around. And it may project in a different direction. So when you go nearest solution, it'll project to the nearest part of the surface, shortest distance. See, preview again. Did you get the same result? And okay. Okay, so you get 2 different results versus normal. Or I say normal versus with direction. You can also pick an axis for direction. So if I go back, double click. For direction, instead of using the line, you can always right click and pick an axis. Okay. Let me cancel out of that. Okay, so this was projection. Let's see if we miss anything. Let's go back. Okay, sometimes when you project something, it does not give you a nice clean curve. When you get your result, it may be a little sharp. So let me see if we have this surface. If we have a different file. Okay, I was waiting to see a different CATIA part to use. Here they're just explaining the smoothness option. But I don't see a new cap part. Let me see if it's hidden. Sometimes it's in the background. Nope. All right, so let me explain this. So on this visual that they're showing us here, See, this is not a clean surface like the green one that we had on the previous one. See, this one is nice and smooth, right? Nice and clean, smooth surface. This one is not as smooth. It's not curvature continuous. In a later lecture, I'm going to explain curvature continuous, which is very important, especially if you're going to work in automotive or aerodynamics. Okay, so when you project a curve onto a surface that's not curvature continuous, you're going to get these little white dots. Anytime you see a little white dot on a curve, it's telling us that it's not curvature continuous as it goes from one line or part of the curve onto the next one. So what you can do is you can clean it up by using the smooth option. Okay, so you have the smoothing option. So if we go back, notice how we don't have any white dots on ours. Let me force one. Okay, so I'm going to extend the surface to create those little white dots. Okay, so let me go ahead and extrapolate the surface. Later on, I will go over extrapolate. I think this is important, so this is the reason I'm doing this. So I'm going to extend the surface, but I'm not going to include curvature continuity. I'll just make it tangent. Okay. Notice how there we have this line. Okay, so let me change the color. So I extended the surface. Let's give it a little bit of color. That is a little tough to see. Okay, so I'm going to go back and project the first one. So it actually lands also in this portion or this patch. So let's go back. Double click on project number 2. And where it says projected, instead of the middle one, I'm going to pick the one on the right. Preview. It doesn't want to give it to me. It's falling off the surface. I may need to extend the surface a little bit further out. Let me turn off nearest preview. Here it is. Okay, it's not going all the way to the other one. Let me go to support. Oh, I forgot to change the support. So it's still using the old support, the one in the background that it did. I want to use a new one, the support with the extension. So let me change my support to the new one. Preview, there it is. Okay. So it was still landing on the old support, the original one. This is my new one with the extension. Okay, let me go with nearest again. Preview, there it is. And I'm going to hit OK. Now it's hard to see, but here, and here where the surface transitions, it's going to be these little white dots. Because of my graphics card, it's hard to see. Let me see if I can change the thickness of the projection. Right click properties. I'm going to reduce the thickness. And OK. And now we can see the white dots. They're hard to see, but there's these little white dots. As the curve transitions from the smooth surface onto the other smooth surface, but there's a slight break in the transition at this seam. Okay, so these little white dots, you'll probably be able to see it better on your computer. Later on, we're going to talk about curve analysis and surface analysis. Okay, so to get rid of these imperfections here, we can go back to project 2 and say, hey, you know what? These little white dots are telling me it's not as smooth as it should be. So I want you to smooth it out and make it with curvature. You can deviate slightly from the exact location where it lands. You can deviate slightly off of the surface by this much, 0.001 millimeters. And let's hit preview and OK. We still got the little white dots, so let's increase the smoothness. Project. There's a max that'll allow me to smooth it. Say, hey, you know what? I want to do 3D smoothing where it's going to slightly lift off the surface just to clean up those areas where there's the white dots. Okay, and let's hit preview again. If that doesn't work, I'm going to have to increase how much it can deviate from. In other words, how much it can come off of the surface to fix itself. Okay, and now the white dots are gone. As you can see, they're no longer there. So even though this curve is on this extended surface, in this area, it's going to slightly lift off, just lift off the surface to smooth itself out. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so this is the end of projections. Talk to you in the next video.